Day, and Jenna will give us a quick bill brief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 431 would establish and allow for the remote practice of pharmacy, would have certain conditions about that remote practice, including security concerns, and establish what could and could not be performed by pharmacy technicians, pharmacy assistants, and pharmacists during that remote practice.
Any questions of Jenna Committee? Seeing none, do I hear a motion on SB 431? Senator Thomas.
All right, I guess my time's up. Madam Chair, I move that we pass out Senate Bill 431 favorably.
Second. Senator Murphy, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? SB 431 has passed out of committee. We will close on final action on that. So now we are going to begin a hearing. Yes. We are waiting for copies on Senate Bill 271, so we are going to hold on that. And we're going to go on with our hearing on Senate Bill 497. Bill brief from Jenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, committee. Senate Bill 497 amends two statutes. The first one being in the Uniform Controlled Substances Act, is Schedule 1, to add mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine. This would be in KSA 654105, so they're being added to Schedule 1. And when we think about the Uniform Controlled Substances Act, the Schedule 1 substances are the substances for which there is no recognized medical use and have a tendency to be addictive. And then as that number increases, Schedules 2, 3, 4, 5, those have less risk. Those are allowed legally to be prescribed and have recognized medical uses. So it adds those two substances to Schedule 1 of the Act, as well as amending a section in the Criminal Code, KSA 215701, which is the definition section for drug crimes. In, I believe, 2022 or 2023, the legislature added some increased penalties for distribution and manufacturing of fentanyl-related controlled substances. So that section needed a definition of fentanyl-related controlled substances. And this bill would make the corresponding amendments to that definition. It would be on page 4, subsection G of fentanyl-related controlled substance. The bill would take effect on July 1, 2025, after publication in the statute book. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Questions for Jenna Committee? Seeing none, we are going to begin with the proponent testimony. Again, you are being timed, and please go as quickly as you can and just summarize, because we do have your written testimony. We're going to begin with Senator Klemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I'll move quickly through in a summary. The rest of my time can go to Dr. Kuntz. Robert Thompson is also not here today due to a family emergency, so his oral time can also go to Dr. Kuntz. I'm Senator Jeff Klemp from District 5, testifying in support of Senate Bill 497. Thank you to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation and the Attorney General for their guidance in this legislation. 7-hydroxymitragynine, 7-OH, kratom synthetic form, is touted to be 13 times stronger than morphine. It relieves pain and boosts mood, but leads to needing more over time, resulting in addiction. It can also slow breathing and cause an overdose. Studies are showing a high risk mirroring that of oxycodone. 7-OH has high abuse potential and no medical use. Rehab testimonies confirm severe addiction. Some argue it should be allowed on our streets, but ignores how it targets vulnerable youth, fostering dependence without medical supervision. Freedom doesn't mean endangering lives for profit. Committee, today I have some of the most knowledgeable experts following me to help educate, to provide details of 7-OH dangers, especially to children. I urge you to unanimously pass Senate Bill 497 out of committee favorably. I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. And next we go to Sarah Hortenstein. Sorry if I butchered that, Sarah.
That's okay. Chair Gossage and members of the committee, my name is Sarah Hortenstein, and I serve as both the Executive Director of the State Child Death Review Board and as the Division Chief of Youth Services at the Kansas Attorney General's Office. My job is to protect Kansas children from preventable harm, including the serious dangers posed by unregulated and emerging drugs. For that reason, I stand today in strong support of Senate Bill 497. As outlined in our written testimony, the passage of this bill is not just important, it is urgent. Kratom and its active compound 7-OH act on the same opioid receptors in the brain, such as drugs like morphine and fentanyl. At lower doses, it can produce stimulant-like effects, and at higher doses, they can cause sedation, nausea, slowed breathing, physical dependence, in severe cases, respiratory depression and death. Yet today in Kansas, these deadly products are sold without meaningful restrictions in gas stations, smoke shops, and convenience stores, in the form of gummies, pills, and liquid shots, right next to candy, snacks, and beverages that our children buy. These products are marked as natural or herbal, creating a false sense of safety that does not match their true consequences. If we continue to allow widespread retail access to substances that act like opioids, we will see opioid-type consequences that include more addiction, overdoses, and preventable deaths in our state. Passing Senate Bill 497 and classifying kratom and 7-OH as Schedule I substances is the best action we can take to prevent those outcomes. I respectfully urge this committee to pass this bill and keep these dangerous, addictive substances out of the hands of Kansas children and out of our communities. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we will go to David Koontz.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me. I'm Dr. David Koontz. I'm a laboratory director for Clinical Reference Laboratory in Lenexa, Kansas. And I've been directing laboratories for 37 years doing drugs of abuse. Part of that testing is looking for things like 7-OH or kratom in the earlier days. We have continuously monitored for initially kratom. There is certainly a use across the United States. We have now begun testing specifically for 7-OH in our donors. What we have found is that we're about 1% of everybody that comes in, we test, are positive for 7-OH or kratom. That level is actually higher than the combined levels of oxycodone, hydrocodone, and fentanyl that we're currently monitoring. As I speak around the country, I run into the people that are involved in treatment, and there's certainly the discussion of severe addiction that needs treatment. And as this is a new receptor, morphine-like drug, there is really no reason to have this out on the street. There has been a couple studies done with kratom, the plant material. There yet to be, that I'm aware of, any 7-OH. It's far too addictive to introduce that into people. So a lot is yet to be learned, and this needs to be controlled until that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Next, we have Katie Patterson.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Katie Patterson, and I appear before you today on behalf of Stand Up for Kansas, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing policies that preserve and protect the quality of life in Kansas. I've appeared before numerous committees over the last 13 years advocating for strong drug policy, because as a KBI agent, I saw firsthand how drug use, drug abuse, and addiction destroys lives, destroys families, impacts communities, and the myriad consequences drain our public safety and criminal justice resources. The reason I appear before you today is not really to speak to my testimony, because the parts of my testimony will be covered by other experts that follow. But I appear today to urge you to read the testimony that you've received from a young woman named Justine Kimmy. Justine reached out to me 3.5 years ago, urging me in a moment of desperation and hopelessness to do something to control kratom. Her life and the lives of her beautiful four daughters were tragically altered when her partner abused kratom to the tune of $700 to $800 a week.
Katie, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. We're getting reports and I'm getting text messages that the WebEx is not working. Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got two folks online that are saying they could not access the link that are scheduled to testify. And so I don't know if it appears it's working. I understand that, but I'm just letting you know.
Go ahead, Katie.
So I know you all are very busy, and I also know that if people don't appear before you in person, that oftentimes you don't have the opportunity to read their testimony. But again, today, I appear before you to urge you to read the written testimony that was submitted by Justine Kimmy. She's a single mother who was not able to appear today, but her story is heart-wrenching. And for her, it's about protecting families. It's about protecting mothers from what she faced. And her philosophy is that if speaking up can help protect one family, then it's worth it to her. And she quoted for me the Bible verse, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 6 through 7, that says, God expects you to use your pain to help others. And it's from that vein that Justine submitted her written testimony. So again, thank you, and I'll be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. Next, we have Patrick Porubsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Patrick Porubsky. I'm a forensic chemist and laboratory operations manager for the Kansas Bureau of Investigation Laboratory. I have a couple slides to share to describe kind of the chemical subject matter around mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine. So these are the two chemical structures of mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine. So 7-hydroxymitragynine is found in low levels in kratom. It's a oxidative product of mitragynine itself, but it's also the major psychoactive metabolite of mitragynine. So when someone consumes one of these products, if they drink one of these drinks of kratom, if they eat any of these substances containing kratom, what happens is in your liver actually converts mitragynine to 7-hydroxymitragynine. So just to kind of talk about the relationship between those two. And so now some companies are taking advantage of that and synthesizing 7-hydroxymitragynine outside of the plant so that effectively it takes out the middleman. It takes out your own body's metabolism, but the same chemical is what's interacting in your brain, giving you that opioid-like effect. So in July of last year, the FDA released a statement requesting that the DEA perform scheduling actions on 7-hydroxymitragynine. They also provided a large document stating the scientific research around 7-hydroxymitragynine. And in the conclusion of that reference, they said the pharmacological profile, abuse liability, and emerging patterns of non-medical use established 7-OH as a dangerous substance. I encourage you all to look at that report. Don't just take my excerpt. There's a lot of information about the dangers of these substances. Also last year, the Kansas Department of Health and Environment also released a letter stating that we are urging individuals to avoid using products containing 7-OH. It can be extremely harmful even in small doses. Last, I want to point out our state participates in something called SUDORS. It's the State Unintentional Overdose Death Reporting System. So overdose deaths are recorded in death reports. That information goes into an online system that is controlled by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention to be able to track demographics of particular overdoses in states. This is data from 2020 to 2023. If the committee would like data from 2024, it was recently shared with me as well. I can provide that to you after the fact. And so what this is stating is this is showing cases where kratom or kratom-related substances, mitragynine, 7-hydroxymitragynine, were detected.
Excuse me, just a moment. That was the timer, but how are they on total time? Okay, So you have a few more minutes because some other people took less time. Thank you. Go ahead.
So with the numbers here with kratom detected, these are overdose deaths in our state where a blood sample from these individuals was tested and a kratom-related chemical was present. The next row in this table, kratom cause of death, this is where kratom or kratom chemicals was actually listed on the death certificate as one of the causes of death. A caveat to this data, a limitation to this data, is that many of these cases are polysubstance use cases, so that those deaths cannot be only attributed to kratom. There may be other factors that add into those deaths. So that's the conclusion of my testimony. I want to be a resource for you all. If there's any questions you guys have about the chemical subject matter that I can get for you, please reach out.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Bob Stewart.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Bob Stewart. I'm the Executive Officer for the KBI. I'm not going to restate either my written testimony or the testimony of the other conferees. They are experts in the field, both in medicine and in science, that talk about the dangers of 7-OH, kratom. What I'd like to do is talk about, just for a second, about the area I am an expert in, and that's 30 years of law enforcement experience and investigation. What I want to sort of explain to you, and what I suspect the opposition is going to talk about, isn't necessarily 7-OH. I think that there's not much in the way of defense about how dangerous that in chemistry is. I think what they're going to argue to you is that the green leafy substance, the kratom itself, should be legalized or should be okay. I say legalized, it's currently legal. They want to keep it legal. I would argue to you that that's a bad idea, simply because from an investigative standpoint and from a laboratory standpoint, it's very, very difficult for us to parse out those things. They may come and say, well, we would like to have kratom allowed at this much by dry weight of some chemical substance, be that mitigyne or 7-hydroxymitigyne. It's very difficult for an investigator in the field to make a determination about what to seize and what not to seize. And it's very difficult for our lab to make a quantitative analysis of it. They can make a yes or no, there's the drug in there or not analysis, but it's very difficult to make the analysis of how much is in there. For those reasons, I would argue to you that we should make the whole kit and caboodle illegal. Kratom in its mitigyne form, in its 7-hydroxymitigyne form, across the board, that's what will protect Kansans best. That's what will make it most easy for us as investigators and as scientists to make sure we're enforcing the law correctly. And with that, I will conclude my testimony and stand for questions when you're.
Thank you, committee. That concludes the testimony from the proponents. Do we have questions? Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For Mr. Perubsky from the lab there, you explained very quickly, but it went fast, about how it's metabolized in the liver and how they're able to circumvent that process. Could you re-explain that? It went so quickly, I couldn't quite digest it.
Yes, sir. So it's fortuitous that you said digest, because if someone consumes this product and it goes into their gut, when it gets absorbed into your body, it goes into what's called the hepatic portal vein. So this is a vein that goes straight from your guts into your liver. Once in your liver, you have these enzymes that are called cytochrome P450s, and they metabolize many different drugs. In particular, in this case, one of the things that gets, one of the metabolism processes that happens is mitragynine itself in your body gets converted to 7-hydroxymitragynine. It gets converted to some other things as well, but that conversion is what makes 7-hydroxymitragynine, and that is a much more potent of an opioid-like effect than the mitragynine itself.
Okay, I think I get it. So they can sell the 7-OH. It sounded like there's two different ways you could get it. 7-OH and some kind of derivative that is digested and metabolized the way you've explained it. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. If kratom itself, as the leafy vegetation, has very little 7-OH in it, it has a lot more of mitragynine itself. So when someone consumes that, their body is converting that mitragynine that they consumed into 7-hydroxymitragynine, among other things that it's converted into. So what people are doing is they're isolating mitragynine from the plant, chemically changing it to 7-hydroxy, And so when people consume those, it doesn't go through this process of metabolism in your body. It can just go straight into your body as the active substance.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Patrick, come back. My question is this, you have the chart on page 5 of the information that you covered that lists cause of death information in terms of kratom. I know from looking at this type of data in the past, often it's several different substances. Can you tell me in regard to the numbers that are cited here, is the cause of death only kratom or potentially other substances as well?
Potentially other substances as well. I don't have the data with me. I could reach out to KDHE if you'd like more information on the prevalence of polysubstance in that group, but it is definitely something to consider.
Senator Clifford, our last question, then we'll go on to the opponents.
I don't know if Dr. Kuntz wants to answer this or Mr. Probosky. I saw in one of the written onlys by the proponents or opponents about Narcan. Is this on a different receptor, or will Narcan work for overdoses? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
As most everybody knows, Narcan is used to recover, and it displaces the binding of the 7-hydroxy on the mu receptor, much like if it would be heroin or morphine. So yes, it will work as a recovery mechanism. So it just displaces it. You start to breathe again. You get another chance at living.
Thank you, Dr. Kuntz. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next, we're going to begin with our opponents, and we will start with Ryan Boshears. Is Ryan in the room? We will go on to Misty Brown. She's on WebEx. Misty, can you hear us?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. We're going to turn you up a little bit. Please go ahead.
Okay. My name is Misty Brown, and I'm a kratom consumer advocate and activist for almost 7 years. I do want to say that I watched a seminar on January 30th from Dr. Doug Burgess from the Missouri Hospital Association, and even he differentiated between kratom and the 7-OH products. I want to say that, the 7-OH products now appearing on the market contain laboratory isolated or chemically converted 7-hydroxymetragenine in amounts far beyond what the human body could ever produce from the kratom leaf itself. At those levels, 7-OH behaves much more like a conventional opioid and carries a much higher risk. There is an absolute difference between the trace amounts of 7-OH in the kratom leaf versus the 7-OH products on the market today. How much time do I have to speak?
I think 1.5 minutes. Yep.
Okay,
And
I'll give you guys a quick rundown of my testimony. From 2008 to 2019, I was trapped in the cycle of FDA-approved pain pills, benzos, and muscle relaxers. Sorry, prescribed for my chronic pain. When I was cut off from pain management in 2019, my life spiraled. I turned to the streets and even cocaine. Then during withdrawal, I watched A Leaf of Faith, the documentary that was on Netflix at the time, and discovered whole leaf kratom, not synthetic 7-OH. That moment changed everything. Kratom quieted my cravings and gave me the space to heal. I have not returned back to pain management over 6.5 years. Today, I'm a thriving mother, proud grandmother, and active kratom advocate from Colorado. Please, you guys have to know how to differentiate between whole leaf kratom and 7-OH. Whole leaf kratom is not the problem in your community. I can guarantee you that. It is those synthetic 7-OH products that are being sold.
thank you. Next, we go to Aaron Estabrook. Aaron, are you in the room? Is he on WebEx? Okay. Next, we go to Jennifer Gillis. Jennifer, are you in the room? Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. You have 1.5 minutes.
Yes, my name is Jennifer Gillis. After struggling for years with chronic pain, I found kratom in 2019 and it gave me my life back. My story is not unique, and for many of us, it provides pain relief without the mental impairment often associated with traditional opioids. The problems are the 7-OH products being marketed as more pure or more potent form of kratom, leaving many consumers, even lifelong or longtime kratom consumers, finding themselves in a 7-OH addiction and having issues. Yes, we convert mitragynine into 7-OH through metabolism, but in much lower amounts. And these products found on the market, they have only been increasing those doses as time goes on. Poison control centers, ER visits, rehabs have seen big increase in numbers since 2023, and it's all attributed to kratom because so many people, that's how these products were sold to them as kratom. It's really put a bad rep on holy kratom, and it's been very disheartening. I also just want to mention Narcan does not work on kratom, but yes, it does work on 7-OH. But yeah, I just want to ask that you go with sensible regulation, getting 7-OH products off the shelves, and that would protect consumers while preserving access to regulated natural kratom products for people like me who rely on it for a better quality of life. Thanks.
Perfect timing, Jennifer. Next, we have Kelly Gray. Are you in the room? Welcome, Kelly.
Let's see. Many Kansas consumers of kratom and myself who depend on the benefits of kratom extremely concerned about the possibility of kratom being added to Schedule 1. There are many misconceptions about kratom that were originally introduced by the FDA about kratom in the past that have been proven false by the FDA's own studies more recently. There was a U.S. congressional hearing last year where testimony was heard from scientists from Harvard, Johns Hopkins, University of Florida, Ohio State, about the studies that they've done on kratom. One of them going back 20 years where they talk about the studies done on mice and humans and not being addictive, studies on motor function when driving. So I would ask that you guys reach out on that congressional hearing and watch that. It's extremely informative and probably more information than what you will hear today. Basically, one of the reasons that I wanted to open a business in Salina, Kansas was because I-35, 70, two biggest drug highways in the country, right? So they all intersect through Salina. Salina has a horrible, horrible meth problem. And I've seen the effects of meth. People that I know have been on meth. The only thing that helps a lot of people is that kratom. I've seen people begin with high doses of kratom and get off of meth quick. I mean, it's really a good product. And I would ask you not to lump kratom in with 7-OH because they are not the same thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mac Haddow. Welcome to committee, Mac.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you. I'm traveling from Virginia, but I welcome the opportunity to be here today. I'm with the American Kratom Association. I would implore you to follow the science, and the science is rapidly evolving, and I can tell you that the FDA themselves have dramatically changed their opinion about kratom because of a human dose-finding study that they conducted that led to the decision by the FDA Commissioner and Secretary Kennedy that was announced on July 29th of 2025. Two things: they wanted to schedule 7-OH on a federal level for the Controlled Substances Act. And secondly, they said natural kratom leaf is not our focus. If it were, they would be scheduling kratom today. I ask you to follow the science. If you look at the websites for NIDA, for the FDA and HHS, they say that kratom deaths are rare, but when they do occur, it's because of polydrug use, adulterated products, 7-OH, or underlying health conditions. You will not find that there's any effectiveness of Narcan for kratom because it doesn't bind the same way to the mu-opioid receptors as does 7-OH. 7-OH emerged on the marketplace as a chemically reformulated opioid. It has all of the dangers. 19 states have passed what we call the Kratom Consumer Protection Act, which protects consumers. We hope that Kansas will do the same. But 7-OH needs to be banned. You need to amend your bill to follow the science as it is being done at the federal level. One last point I will make. Sublingual strips and tablets are 7-OH the way they deliver it. It goes right to your bloodstream, addicts you, puts you at risk for an opioid or a 7-OH overdose, and it will kill you. glad to stand for any questions anyone might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Eric Kuser. Are you in the room? I'm sorry? Keyser, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Eric Keyser, and I am handicapped. I was born with a genetic disorder known as hip dysplasia. It is very painful to the point I had trouble even walking. The alkaloids and 7-OH changed all of that for me. Before I started taking them, I was in so much pain that I had to be pushed in a wheelchair at the airport. It was embarrassing. My love of travel was becoming very difficult. Thanks to the 7-OH, I can now walk all by myself. Because of my handicap, I had ballooned in weight. I was 305 pounds. I couldn't stand for too long. I wasn't sleeping. Everything constantly hurt. My life was miserable. I started taking 7-OH in December of 2024, and I haven't looked back. I have never once overdosed. I have never once needed emergency medical care. I'm no longer in constant pain. It doesn't hurt to lay in bed. It doesn't hurt to stand. It doesn't hurt to sit too long. I am now able to walk. I'm now able to walk so good that I'm blowing out my daily step counter on my phone. I'm able to walk so good that I've lost 95 pounds. I'm healthy. I'm thriving. I'm here for my life and my family. I won't die an early obese death thanks to the 7-OH. I never took pills or narcotics for my pain like others have. I never have done street drugs like others have. Opioids are a problem in this country, and you are trying to ban a legal, natural alternative to opioids and the fentanyl epidemic. Politicians talk about fentanyl overdoses have dropped and then pat themselves on the back, claiming it's because of the availability of Narcan. No. Overdoses have dropped in this country because of a safe, legal alternative, 7-OH. 7-OH gave me my life back, and I will forever be grateful.
Eric, thank you so much. I gave you a little extra time because we had a couple of people that weren't here. And next we'll go to WebEx and Andrew Kolpa. And I understand that John Cleveland is trying to get in. Andrew, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Madam
Minute
Chair,
and a half.
Madam Chair, and members of the committee, thank you so much. My name is Andrew Kalpa, and I'm speaking on behalf of the organization Botanicals for Better Health and Wellness. We advocate for scientifically based, reasonable regulations surrounding botanicals. Kratom has been used for centuries and for a variety of therapeutic reasons, including improved mood, reduced anxiety, increased energy, and for the treatment of minor aches and pains. It's been used in the U.S. for over 30 years for many of the same reasons. Kratom itself is not a controlled substance and never has been. For nearly a decade, actions taken by Congress, Health and Human Services, and the National Institute on Drug Abuse have established kratom's therapeutic benefits and preserved its position as a dietary ingredient. Most recently, the FDA has completed their own clinical trial surrounding kratom, testing upwards of 7 times a commercial serving of kratom and found no severe adverse events and that the product can be taken and well tolerated in an adult population. To this date, kratom has never been analyzed under the required 8-factor analysis required for the FDA and DEA for scheduling in order to have the botanical schedule. As you have heard today, the level of concern in the testimony largely surrounds 7-hydroxymitragynine or 7-OH, not kratom as a natural botanical. While we appreciate some of the concerns raised surrounding kratom, this is largely in part to the misbranding of the synthetic opioid 7-OH that was introduced to the marketplace as kratom. Please make no mistake, 7-OH is not kratom. Even the DEA, HHS, and FDA have made clear that their efforts to actually schedule 7-OH and not kratom. You have heard a little bit of testimony, and what I summarize is throw the baby out with the bathwater. Numerous states such as Kentucky, Florida, and Ohio, as well as the DEA, FDA, and HHS have made clear that their enforcement efforts and testing efforts surrounding 7-OH and the amount of 7-OH within a product can easily be differentiated from kratom. We urge the state to regulate natural kratom and prohibit 7-OH consistent with both federal authorities as well as those of 18 other states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we will go to Matthew Lowe. Are you in the room? On WebEx? Not here. Our next opponent is Nick Reiniger.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for allowing me to speak today. My name is Nick Reinecker from Inman, Kansas. I am an opponent to this bill in its current form. I would like to read from my reference Friedman deal that I put down in there. The question was posed, what do you see for our children's future? And he responds, if you and your fellow citizens continue on moving more and more in the direction of socialism, not only inspired through your drug prohibition, but through your socialization of schools, socialization of medicine, the regulation of industry, I see for my granddaughter the equivalent of Soviet communism 3 years ago. I'm very convinced there is a level of socialism in here, but I cannot ascertain what kind of level it is. I am for a Controlled Substances Act and stiff penalties when it comes to synthetic substances engineered to be more addictive and profitable and deadly, like legally putting ammonia in tobacco cigarettes. Do not force people back to the streets. Please allow certain natural occurring substances for adults 21 and up for use as an off-ramp from opioids and liberty in general. It is President's Day. What would the founders say about this bill? After 250 years of a united self-government through a constitutional republic under God, that is based on life and the liberty to be self-reliant with the building blocks of nature. I wonder if George Washington would recognize and opine on the current prohibitionist framework and misguided legislative prowess that is exacerbating trauma, undermining patient access to care, wasting precious law enforcement resources. Could I reclaim a little bit of time that the people were not here, please? Like another minute?
We'll give you another half a minute.
Thank you. Enhancing cartel profit margins and inflating diagnoses with insurance billable codes that require more taxpayer expenditures on social services like Medicaid, including pharmaceuticals and case management. When a plant is said not to have current accepted medical value, but if you synthetically isolate and derive chemicals from plants, then they are considered medical and profitable for stockholders and politicians. We have shot way past even the safety over liberty debate. There is a Jesus-sized hole inside all of us that we need to fill. Idolatry is as idolatry does. Thank you, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Nick. Next, we have Inga Selders. Are you in the room? Welcome, Inga.
Good morning. I'm Inga Selders. I'm the Policy Director for CBD American Shaman. Today, I want to present evidence on why Kratom does not meet the requirements for placement into Schedule I under the Kansas Uniform Controlled Substances Act. First, let's understand what Kansas law requires. Under KSA 65-4102, when the Kansas Board of Pharmacy determines whether to schedule, reschedule, or delete a substance, they must consider 8 specific factors: the actual or relative potential for abuse, the scientific evidence of its pharmacological effect, the state of its current scientific knowledge regarding the substance, the history and current pattern of abuse, the scope, duration, and significance of abuse, the risk to public health, the potential to produce psychological or physiological dependence, and whether the substance is an immediate precursor of a substance already controlled. These are evidence-based criteria that require careful consideration, not assumptions. The federal government's own position of Kratom is quite telling. In 2018, the Department of Health and Human Services rescinded its rescheduling recommendation for Kratom, acknowledging that the FDA had failed to meet the burden of proof required for controlled substances scheduling. Importantly, HHS explicitly warned of significant risk of adverse public health consequences if Kratom were to be banned. On the international level, the World Health Organization Expert Committee reviewed Kratom in 2021 and found insufficient evidence to recommend international scheduling. The WHO recognized Kratom's traditional medicinal use in Southeast Asia and found only mixed and limited evidence regarding abuse liability. Kratom shares documented uses that Kansans rely on: pain management and chronic pain relief, support for opioid withdrawal and addiction treatment, and management of anxiety and depression. Thousands of Kansans currently—
We will give her another 30 seconds.
Thank you. For health-related purposes. From a safety standpoint, when we consider the factors required under KSA 65-4102, the risk to public health, the scope and significance of abuse, and the current scientific knowledge, Kratom does not show profiles that would warrant Schedule I classification. When adverse events do occur, they typically involve product contamination or polysubstance use, not from the substance itself. We have decades of traditional use establishing clear safety patterns, and Kratom is demonstrably safer than many currently legal substances, including alcohol and tobacco. The public health consequences of scheduling would be severe. It forces users towards more dangerous alternatives, would eliminate a critical harm reduction pathway for people trying to reduce opioid use and would criminalize thousands of Kansans who are currently using kratom legally and safely. Again, HHS explicitly warned of these significant.
Thank you, Inga. And thank you for being with us. Next, we have John Cleveland. Are you on WebEx? Can you hear us, John? Could you unmute yourself, John? Okay, we're going to bypass John for now and tell me when he comes on, and we'll move to Jason Todak, or Todak.
How goes it? Been in business for 9 years. I literally have so many customers that come in for this, from bad backs, aches and pains, obviously joint wear and stuff like that. I use it every day. I have used it for years because I have a disc that separates constantly. And the issue is that when I have people come into my business, what I am seeing is people that are coming off of these other drugs and are looking for something that's more of a gentle thing to come down with, especially with kratom. I've seen addicts from fentanyl. I've seen alcoholics use it. I have seen people who are hooked on pain pills. This is an all-natural, whole leaf product. This product gives people choices and options to be able to get off of these other heinous drugs that are out there. And I see this literally every day. And for the past decade, my job has been to help people. That's all it is. We help people understand how to take care of tolerances, how the product works with their body, and also how it's going to bring them down gently to a point to where they don't have these other things that they're addicted to. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Melody Wolf on WebEx.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Melody Wolf, and I'm here to ask you to follow the current HHS and FDA guidance on kratom and 7-OH. They asked me to speak from their platform July of 2025. They asked me to speak about the benefits of kratom and how it had changed my life with my family. And they asked me to distinguish it from 7-OH, which I did. I have been a chronic pain patient for over 20 years. For 8 of those years, I was bedridden. I had 3 little kids at the time, and they had to perform tests way beyond their years. They lost their childhood, and I lost being a mom. I finally found kratom when my youngest was a senior in high school. And since then, I have been a present grandma for my granddaughter, and I've been a good parent to my adult children. And in 2022, my daughter went off maternity leave. Her childcare closed down 2 weeks before she went off. So they asked me to move across the state of Michigan into their home to take care of a newborn for a year, which I did gladly. And this past summer, they had like a $20,000 home repair bill. Childcare is $1,500 a month, which that's a different topic. So they asked me to move in with them again for the summer. I chased a 3.5-year-old around the neighborhood, from splash pads to, we went to the Detroit Zoo every week.
Melody, thank you so much for your testimony. We ran out of time for the entire group, and we even gave you a little extra. So thank you so much for being with us. Committee, are there any questions for the opponents? Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For Mac Haddow. Thanks for coming, Mr. Haddow.
Thank you.
Could you cite where 7-OH or OH has been approved for medical use in the United States?
7-OH has not.
Okay. How do you determine the dosage when somebody comes into a business, wants kratom, wants 7-OH? How does that business owner determine the dosage to recommend to someone who's looking for some relief?
Senator Thompson, Madam Chair, the federal law requires that prior to market introduction of any dietary ingredient or supplement, that the manufacturer has to have a reasonable basis of safety under the conditions of use, which is the labeling instruction on serving size. So they are legally required to express on their label what the recommended serving size is. It should not be left to the discretion of a clerk in a store to tell them what that is. It has to be based on the good science, and it, depending on the formulation of the product, it can be different depending on whether it's a beverage, whether it's a powder, whether it's a capsule, and so that's the critical distinction. 7OH, by the way, by their own scientist admission in a conference that we sponsored, said they didn't have any evidence and data prior to market entry. Metrogenine or kratom has been on the market for centuries, and products in the United States meet that standard.
Let me think about it. Go ahead.
Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stay right there. I've got a question for you. So my understanding is this bill groups together both plant kratom, the raw material, and then the synthetic. And from my understanding of what I'm hearing today, there are big differences between those two products. Can you outline for me in terms of drug scheduling? Does one meet more of the criteria to be Schedule 1 versus the other, or where do they fall in the scheduling?
So rather than confuse this issue with my personal opinion, I will send to each one of you a 8-factor analysis that was conducted and completed by Jack Henningfield of Johns Hopkins University that was submitted to the Drug Enforcement Administration on this very issue. What are the differences between natural kratom leaf and 7OH? And it addresses the criteria under Kansas law. You match the federal criteria. And Dr. Henningfield's conclusion was natural kratom leaf does not meet the standard under the 8 factors required for scheduling. 7OH does. I'll circulate that document. I warn you in advance, it's 254 pages. But
You want to send the PDF of the 254 pages to Patrick, or we will see that the committee gets it if they would like one.
I will do so. And the executive summary covers it all. You don't have to read all 254 pages.
It usually does. Thank you, Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But we just heard from the chemical experts that said that the natural leaf can be metabolized in your body process into 7OH.
It does. There are, the 7OH does not exist in the natural plant material. After the leaves are harvested, the heat process in drying the leaves in order to prepare them for shipping to the United States and globally starts to degrade, and 7OH at trace amounts starts to develop. When you ingest, and the FDA said those trace amounts are safe, when you ingest the natural kratom leaf product, it goes through your gut as was described accurately, and your liver starts to process it, and it delivers a 7OH quantity in safe amounts. That's why the FDA dose finding study was critically important to determine that even at magnitudes higher than anyone could consume of natural kratom leaf material, it was not unsafe. 7OH is different. When it goes through your gut, it hits your liver like a freight train because of the high concentration of 7OH. That's the difference, and that's why 7OH is so dangerous.
Mac, thank you so much for being here. And one last question, then we're going to work our last bill, 271. And the question is, we heard from KBI, I'm not sure if you're the right person to answer it, but it's hard to tell the difference. When it's packaged and available in retail, how do they look differently?
The packaging standards, why our Kratom Consumer Protection Act doesn't allow, 19 states have passed that, doesn't allow for attractiveness to kids. It requires kid-proof packaging. What you have to do is look at the label, not the packaging, and it is clearly distinguished. If you have a level of 7OH that is higher than 1 milligram, then you don't need a testing. You know that's an illegal product because that's synthesized. Everything else is natural, but you can, and I don't mean to contradict the KBI, easily distinguish between the two. The testing's out there. It's readily available.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to the proponents and opponents committee. This concludes the hearing on SB 497. We will now go to final action on SB 271, which is the long-awaited CHIP bill. So, Jen, if you would pass out the amendment. You may recall, committee, that at the time we were discussing there would be a balloon amendment. So in doing research on this with our revisors and the research department, we have determined that the average among the states, I should say the median, is 200% of poverty level guidelines. We're going to keep my recommendation would be to keep the 250% of the poverty level guidelines. However, we have, since the inception, we heard from KDHE, we heard that the premium being charged to parents for this has not changed since the inception of CHIP in the state of Kansas. We currently have $50 per family, and these are the very higher income folks in that category. Therefore, it will maintain to be a sliding scale, but rather than per family, it would be per child, which is what this has here, which is what most of the other states who charge a premium do rather than per family. And then down at the bottom, it says if a family is otherwise eligible. You see where that strikeout was? In meeting with KDHE, their recommendation was not to strike if the family pays all of the delinquent premiums, they will again be eligible. But if a family is otherwise eligible for coverage, otherwise eligible, and they pay their delinquent premiums, then they can be renewed. This was their wording. Any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, I will move the amendment. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Thomas. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're back on the bill. Any questions on the bill? Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, I want to point out, this does update the base year.
Yes, it does.
Thank you,
There
Madam
is no year indicated.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So do I hear a motion on the bill? Moved by Senator Thomas. Do I hear a second? Senator Clifford, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Senate Bill number 271 is going to the Senate. We are adjourned.